And we really need a National Truth Commission to sort some of these things out. Not only the question of the underground and undersea bases, but the conduct of the war against Iraq and Afghanistan, of the assassinations, stretching all the way back to the 1960s, and especially and including the false flag attacks of September 11th, 2001.
Yeah, that's a whole issue all by itself, which...
But it's linked to the others.
There's this chain of events that has occurred.
It's a rolling coup d'etat that's taken place over a period now of about half a century. And with each new event, whether it's assassination of a president or a presidential candidate or plane slamming into skyscrapers in New York or declaration of a war on false pretenses, on and on, or just outright stealing money from us to our face by the trillions of dollars, this is a slow-motion coup d'etat intended, and I say it again, to enslave us, to reduce us to nothing. Let's put it this way. What goes on in Washington, D.C. is not at all what we're taught in our American civics classes in high school and when we go away to college.
And you can't learn that in a book, Richard, can you?
You have to learn it the hard way. And the country is learning it the hard way by having our money stolen from us by people who then lie to us shamelessly and come at the next election cycle and ask again for our votes. I'm simply proposing that we stop voting for them. The military has technology they haven't told us about. And the propulsion that they use, the different types of systems that they use in some cases, could be of great benefit to society. It's being held back from us. We've paid for it. It's been developed by people on the public payroll, and it's been kept back from us. And in fact, it is the patrimony of the human race. It's actually the intellectual property of the human race, and it's being held back from us. Our military, our government are actually committing great crimes against the American people.
Richard C. Hoagland believes that there's a secret space program going on. He may be right.
I think he's right. In fact, I suspect there's more than one secret space program going on.
That could be too.
An additional note, the National Truth Commission sounds like a good idea, Richard and George. We should start that if it doesn't already exist.
I wonder who would be on that panel, Richard. Who could we believe?
Well, I could think of some people that would be good to put on it. I'd put someone like Jim Marrs on that panel.
Marrs. I'd put Ron Paul on it too, even though he's...
I wouldn't because he's too much a part of the establishment. I would not put him on that panel.
You would not.
I would put someone like Catherine Austin Fitts, someone like Cynthia McKinney.
Mm-hmm.
I would put for starters, those would be some of the types of people I would put on it. I'd have to think about some of the others. I would not put Ron Paul on it. He's compromised.
What do you think of Area 51?
Oh, very serious research and design takes place there. It's very much a functional, active base for the military-industrial espionage complex. There's certainly large underground facilities there. There's a lot of exotic technology that is tested and designed and deployed there.
As private as it must be, confidential, it's probably the most widespread of the facilities, underground facilities that are out there.
Well, I'm sure it's one of them. In general, Nevada, the entire state of Nevada, has a lot of underground activity. I would also include New Mexico very much in this conversation, and a facility like White Sands Missile Range, for example, which would be very much the same type of facility as Area 51, but receives less attention. But it's also a large, sprawling southwestern facility where the military-industrial espionage complex carries out a lot of cutting-edge R&D. No, it's not a question of having guts. It's simply what I do. I'm expressing my humanity, essentially, and I'm not scared to do that. I think, rather, if I were some of these people, I would, there's certain spiritual realities, and it's possible to so damage your soul that you virtually can't recover from that, and you lose your humanity once and for all. Once you get to mystical literature, you understand what harm you can do to your soul if you set out down a dark path, intending to do harm to others. And that's what we're faced with here. We're faced with some real nefarious agendas, very dark, very secretive, very powerful, and at their essence, very destructive. And so those who are involved in these programs are really putting their souls at jeopardy. So on the contrary, I am not frightened to do what I'm doing. Simply what I do is to write and research and talk about what I discover. In fact, it's my right to do that. And it's my human right to do that at a very deep level. And it's the human right of every single person within the sound of my voice to take this information in and to act on it in whatever nonviolent way they perceive as appropriate. I would say there are people out there calling for violent retaliation. I'm not one of them. I, in fact, am a firm advocate of radical nonviolence.
Imagine, Richard, what they could have done with the money for society instead of using it for these facilities?
Quite a lot of good, actually, George. There's tremendous suffering. And not only to use it for these facilities, but so many trillions of dollars are being lavished on warfare, which is warfare is a dead end. I mean, it seems like a truism, but that's the way it is. And yes, this money could be very creatively and productively used in wonderful, constructive ways. This planet could be a harmonious, peaceful, really almost could be almost a paradise in many ways. But we have very dark beings, not only running the American government, but some other governments on the planet, and the large banks and so forth, and military institutions. Dark beings, a very limited, violent, destructive, hateful mentality. And I think the only appropriate way to behave towards them is not violently, but non-violently, by non-violently, peacefully withdrawing our cooperation from them personally and from their projects and plans, not cooperating with their warfare, and by withdrawing our money and economic resources from, frankly, the vast criminal Ponzi scheme that is called the American economy.
Don't you think one day people will say enough is enough?
Well, that day is already starting, George. That day is beginning. It's beginning this year in 2010. I think we're coming up on that day, and I think a lot of people, by the millions, are simultaneously realizing that, as you say, enough is enough, and we're tired of the psychopaths. I personally am tired of the war. There's just war after war after war. I'm tired of it. Enough.
Well, you're not.
How do you end the wars? By not participating in them. Don't go in the military. It's bogus. What have the people in Afghanistan ever done to us? Why are we even fighting there?
Richard, what can you tell us about the Stanford Research Institute's 1968 report on these manned undersea bases?
Yeah, they came out with a report entitled The Feasibility of Manned and Bottom Bases. They actually were talking about making 30 undersea bases down in the seafloor beneath the bottom of the ocean. And in their scheme, which was somewhat similar to what came out of China Lake, they felt like bases could have three possible functions: industrial, scientific, and military. And by the way, any given one base might simultaneously serve both an industrial, scientific, and a military function. Conceivably, one or more of those could be clandestine. I take that document very seriously. It, again, is you have to understand that SRI, the Stanford Research Institute, is very much like the RAND Corporation, for example, and that it is a think tank that is much used and has been for decades by the military-industrial espionage complex to develop new technology and new programs. For example, the U.S. Army's remote viewing Stargate program, which was run jointly by Army Intelligence and the CIA, was first developed in prototypical form at SRI back in the 1970s, and then was moved to the East Coast, and the training was done at the Monroe Institute in Faber, Virginia, up in the mountains, and the actual operational aspect of the program was at Fort Meade in Laurel, Maryland. So I take that document very seriously, the more so since I do have anecdotal accounts of undersea bases from multiple sources, and also the documentation from the Navy itself. I used to live up in Flagstaff, and I've done some hiking around the Sedona area myself. There's no doubt that some of these underground facilities have exotic technology, and that so much information has been held back from us. There's no question my research reveals unambiguously that there are secret underground bases created by the American military. There's just no doubt of that. And my research also shows unambiguously that these bases can be very deep, a mile deep, and even much deeper than that. They can be accessed by vertical high-speed elevator shafts, by horizontal shafts that go into the sides of cliffs and mountains. The entrances and exits and air shafts for these facilities can be and are camouflaged. So I certainly have heard many stories about the Sedona area.
I bet we'd be in awe, Richard, if we saw one of these facilities.
Well, you know, from what people have described who've been in them, and from what I've seen in my archival and documentary research, we're dealing virtually with a parallel universe, a type of science fiction reality. And I say again, we have been so lied to, just massively lied to. It's pathological. We have been betrayed. I would use that word. We have been betrayed. At a very basic level, there's a type of treason here. We have been sold out. And the picture that's coming into focus for me is real ugly. This is no small thing. It's not like a personal indiscretion or something like that. This is a massive crime against society from the highest and deepest levels of the military-industrial espionage complex, and from the highest and most powerful levels of the American government, the corporate structure and the American government. They have used us, they have lied to us, and they have betrayed us and sold us out.
And worldwide, though.
Well, worldwide, but it's centered here in the United States. Like it or not, this is the most powerful system on the planet at this point in our history. So it really centers here. It may go on in other areas of other regions of the world, but here in North America, there's a real nexus of these shenanigans. And I wouldn't let the American government off the hook. They have done us wrong. People know information all over the country, and those who have information need to come forth with it. We need thousands of whistleblowers. Let's air this out. If these facilities exist, and they do, we're entitled to know about it. We should know about it. And if the government won't tell us that, then let's please tell each other if they want.
We own it, right?
We should tell each other.
We paid for it.
Exactly, and we should tell each other what we know. And shame on the government for lying.